Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside of their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
All right, First Responder Financial Freedom with Dan Smith. Dan was a Chattanooga, Tennessee firefighter for about just over a decade down in the southern part of the U.S. For you guys who don't know where Tennessee and Chattanooga are, I know we're dealing with cops on this podcast, so some of you guys are a little bit touched. Now, Dan is now doing a lot of real estate investing. He's got some partnerships on some stuff he's doing. He's doing storage units. He's got 100 rentals. He's doing flips right now. I just saw he posted looking for some workers down in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, down by Pigeon Forge. So, Dan, thanks for coming on and spending some time with us. Me, you, Mike, and Tyler will be chopping it up for about an hour, and then we'll try to finish this up with some motivational shit. So, Dan, welcome to the podcast, bro.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So let's start with the beginning, middle, end. You started off as a firefighter, and that was late 2000s?
Correct.
Were you investing before then?
I was.
Okay, so tell me how you went from real estate investing into the fire department versus all of the people in the group who want to do first responder to real estate investing. You kind of did it the opposite way.
Well, I guess my story is a little different than probably 95% of people. I was very much hands-on, swinging a hammer daily. But I had no money. I had nothing. I didn't understand creative financing. I didn't understand private lending, nothing. I mean, I started with going to banks. And so I had to find cheap stuff that I could get in and clean up and everything else. Well, I couldn't support a family because, I mean, I was making a little bit here and there, but, you know, you buy a rental, it takes time to pay it down. So I kept a job. I mean, I've had a job up until a year ago. I was a school teacher. I chased storms doing roofing, siding, guttering. And I fell into firefighting because it was the type A personality, the adrenaline junkie, you know, it all fit that. But then also the time off. It just lended really well to real estate to where I could really focus on developing that side of it.
So I like this. I like the same thing. Like you have your one day on or whatever you work, and then your 2 or 3 days off, depending on where you are. So it definitely frees up a lot of time that you have to focus on other endeavors or traveling. That's one of the best things about being a firefighter with our shift schedule. So you went from swinging a hammer, which me and you have in common, to fire department, but you're doing real estate before that, during that, and now after that. When did you make the jump from 1 or 2 off to like the amount of abundance of houses and stuff you're doing now? Like what was your springboard?
Really, it was buying a multifamily property. Just to be real honest, I bought a 20 unit, completely dilapidated. It was terrible. And we took 3 years to fix it up. I mean, it was, you wouldn't even let your neighbor's dog live in there. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. I mean, we gutted them. And it was even a different model there. We did weekly rentals. Down here in the nice South, we have a lot of people that make, you know, $10-15 an hour at a factory. They can't afford to do the utilities and internet and all that kind of stuff. So we did a package deal where we would do weekly rentals. Huge success. So that's how we converted our apartment complex. And about a year ago, after I had back surgery, I had somebody approach me about selling them. And I was like, I mean, I'm making great money, but sure, let's talk. Well, in the meantime, I bought another 12-unit apartment building and had done a complete remodel on it. And they ended up buying both sets. And what that did is I actually paid off all of my residential. So duplexes, triplexes, single family houses, I was able to pay everything off. So that was my springboard, was flipping those. And I say flipping, I mean, it was a 4-year flip, but That's what got me going to the point to where I was debt free on the residential side. Once again, difference of philosophies with a lot of guys. They say, you should have debt, all that good stuff. I love being debt free.
There's a lot there. So that's awesome, man. So how many units did you have when you purchased the 20 unit?
I probably had 40, 35, 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had a handful there. So those were usually picking up one or two at a time or a couple a year, correct?
Yep.
So you had a portfolio before you got on the job, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So can you kind of rewind? And I don't know what you did before you got hired. I know what you mentioned, but like, how did you get that first deal? Because that's the one where I feel like those are the ones people struggle with the most. Like, how do I get that first domino? And then once I have 20, 30, 40 doors, those dominoes, they get bigger and bigger, and it's a little bit less work to knock down that bigger stuff. But that first one is massive. Yeah. So could you just kind of maybe quickly go over that? Okay. Yeah, let's go over just roughly the first 10. How'd you do that?
Well, once again, it goes back to swinging the hammer. So I bought what nobody wanted. I mean, I bought a little house for $5,000. It probably should have been bulldozed. And I went to the bank, said, hey, I need 20 grand. And they went and looked at it and they're like, okay, I mean, it's 20 grand. At the time I was teaching, so 20 grand to a bank with a teacher is not a big deal. So that's what I did is I bought it, and man, I completely went in, remodeled it, and it's rented for $500, $600, $700 a month ever since. I used that equity to help springboard into the next one. I'd go to the bank and say, hey, now it's worth $40,000 or $50,000. Can I buy another little house for, $10,000 or $15,000? So I bought 2 or 3 like that. Well, then while I was working on one, the neighbor came across the street and said, hey, I'd like to rent your house. Their house was dilapidated, rats running everywhere and everything else. And I was like, well, why do you want to move from where you're at? They're like, do you see the rats running out of our crawl space? I was like, well, yeah, I do. I said, well, let me talk to your landlord, and, that way I can get a good reference. I ended up buying 6 properties for $35,000. I literally bought one house for $2,000.
Nice. Damn. So I know you've alluded to they were rough. Was this a rough area or just rough houses or both?
A little bit of both. In Tennessee, where I'm at, Cleveland, rough is not the same as rough in Chattanooga or rough in Baltimore or DC. But it was our lower income area. So yeah, it's not where most people really want to live. And that's where I started.
But there's a big difference between like poor and ghetto. That's why a lot of people don't differentiate, because poor is like you can go to a poor area and it's not necessarily dangerous, but you can go into a ghetto area and it's dangerous, but not also poor.
It was poor.
Yeah. So a lot of areas of the country. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, we talked about this with Seth Teagle on the last episode, and there's a market for all of those different categories, even the quote ghetto, there's a need for low income housing. There's a need for that medium and that high end. That's just the way the market works. So I just was trying to, based on the price points you were mentioning and the bulldozers and the rats, I was kind of figuring it wasn't the best area, but But
what's crazy is after I went in, and this was all selfish things, to be honest with you, I'd go to Goodwill and buy pallets of tile, and I would do tile in the shower surrounds. I would do tile in kitchens.
So your product was way nicer.
That's exactly. Those original 6 properties, I still have the same tenants in, and that was 7-8 years ago. So I didn't overcharge them and kill them. And this is their home. They want to be there. That's where their families are and everything else. So I went above and beyond, but it's paid off in the end, because I don't go in and have to fix showers and
lower maintenance costs, less turnover. You can demand a little bit higher rent, even if that rent is maybe low for the area.
Yeah.
So, and you get you get to pick the cream of the crop for the tenant pool too.
Absolutely. And it's worked out well. I could go up and rent. It's not worth it. It's not worth losing the good tenants that are there.
So you basically snowballed those first couple,
Yep.
And you got 10, 20 of them. And then along came this 20 unit. And that's where you kind of saw that like flywheel really kick over and start churning, right?
Correct. Yeah. I got that 20 unit. And then in the middle of that 20 unit, in the 12 unit, 8 duplexes came up that were pretty much right next door to each other. Huge amounts of money. Didn't know how I was going to do it. And I just said, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and put a contract on these and I'm going to figure it out. That was the easiest transaction I ever did.
So how did you end up? How'd you figure out the funding?
I went to the bank and I had, at the time, I had just paid off a property and I used it as collateral for my down payment. So I walked into the deal for no money. And this is the other thing, when I go back to the fire department where I lived on the fire department salary. I lived on nothing as far as real estate. We'd flip. So through this, we also did flips. So we'd make 20 grand on a flip or 30 grand on a flip. And I told my wife years ago, I was like, just go with me. I said, eventually one day it'll pay off. And
this movie sounds familiar.
Is that what you've been talking to your wife about?
That's basically, that's how it started with me too. Like just trust me on this one. Yeah. And so talk about some pressure. Lean. Like you're going to make sure this works.
Yeah. We lived lean. We lived super lean. And I mean, down to the point of when we were in the fire academy, my wife was couponing and we had $10 in the bank account and I wasn't taking money from real estate. We were just rolling that in. So we were able to get a property paid off. We used that as collateral to get those 8 duplexes. They were renting for $550 a month. We were going in, cleaning them up. Good area though. They were the crappiest ones in a good area. So when I ended up selling them off my 20 unit, I was able to pay all of those off. And that was huge because now those are renting for $950 a month.
So you basically you sold your, I don't want to say your lower end of your portfolio, but you sold some stuff that was cash flowing well. You had a good bit of equity and you paid off the single families or the quads, duplexes, whatever. So basically, you have no mortgage on any of these now. So you're basically able to enjoy a lot of cash flow. And you're right. There's people that will sit there. And I always describe it as like a lot of times Rich Dad, Poor Dad is mentioned, Robert Kiyosaki. And then you have the Dave Ramsey crowd where no debt, no debt, no debt. And I always kind of feel like I'm a hybrid of that. Like I totally see both sides of the coin. And sometimes I feel like they're both having like a tug of war in my head where it's like, pay it off. No, you idiot, you can do better doing this. And it's like, but at the end of the day, like you said, you just really enjoy having everything paid off. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with feeling like that. Like, cause one of the biggest things I've had to learn is like, you have to just run your own race in this business and frankly in life, but like, you can't judge, like you can't sit there and say like, hey, this guy over here, Tyler likes to keep everything leveraged and then refi it out, pull the cash out, take it tax-free, debt it back up, pay it down. But you know what? Like, it's really hard to put an ROI on like good night's rest, not giving a shit about anything, man. Yeah. And so like, that's where I kind of get that tug of war going. So
I totally agree with you. And I've had that struggle. I mean, obviously I had to start with debt. That's all I had. I didn't have any money. So, but the Dave Ramsey messed with my head. And then, as we transition into the storage, if you guys want to talk about that, I've got a partner in that. His whole philosophy is hedge against inflation. You take debt, you do all that. I see it too. But for me personally, the peace of mind, it's just so amazing not to have that. And I feel, this is all about making money, profiting, but I also feel that I'm able to be a better landlord to my tenants as well. If they have a struggle, I don't have to have every dollar to be able to make it each month.
Are you managing these yourself?
Say that again.
Are you managing your portfolio yourself?
We do.
Godspeed, brother.
Yeah. My wife.
So for those listening, Dan and his partner, Randy, they sat in the hot seat at a mastermind that we had a couple of months ago. And Randy is full throttle, buy. And Dan's more of the, well, let's look at the numbers. Let's figure this out. Let's see if it's going to cash flow enough and, potential for, what if. So one's more conservative and the other one's more, aggressive with their buying. So they got put in the hot seat. It's a great place to kind of get feedback from everybody. And it's a great partnership to have, because if you have two people who are always buy, you don't have anybody looking at the what ifs. So that was my hat's off to you for sitting in front of the hot seat in front of a crowd of strangers and doing that. But that's one of the things, like if you're looking for a partner, you want to have a partner that's going to be a good difference of what your personality is.
You got to have a yin to that yang. You can't, if you have two like-minded individuals, while it's important to kind of align in your philosophy, like you kind of have to have a little bit of difference in order to make the partnership worthwhile, right?
You absolutely do. And I think that's for me, partnerships are so hard because I am so hands-on that to get a partner like me, it's almost impossible. So you either have to give a lot of give and take, or you're gonna get frustrated. I mean, you guys know, you heard the conversation. There was a lot of frustration on both sides. And I will say, I mean, Randy backed off because, I do a lot of the operational side of just buying and maxing out, to 70, 80% loan to value. So he's definitely backed up and allowed us to kind of get more things stabilized. But I don't know. One of my very first mentors, he told me, he said, if you don't have to partner, don't partner. So I still feel that way, even though I have a partner, because I just don't want to take a chance of, blowing up and it being a nasty situation. That's where, you get several projects, and that's kind of scary if it becomes nasty.
Well, and I think a lot of people too that, I've had partnerships before. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I think partnering up on a deal by deal basis, especially in the beginning, is easy because, like you said, that way you're not tied up in a bunch of things together. And then you got to unwind this if anything bad happens. Yeah. So I'm totally in the I'll partner with somebody on specific deals, but as far as a partnership in a business, you have to be super fortunate. I mean, for it to work out. I mean, you don't really hear a ton of success stories. Yeah, we were partners for 30 years. It worked out great. Like I know Mike and Bill have been partners for a while. It seems to work good from the outside looking in, but you have to be very fortunate. And I've tried to partner with some good friends too. And it's not that it was bad. It's just like, let's just go ahead and like wrap this individual deal up and not make it a long-term thing so nothing bad happens down the pike.
And what's interesting is that this, the partnership with Randy is the first long-term or multiple buys. Mine was normally just, hey, let's do a flip together with another teacher, and we did it over the summer and it worked out well, but I'm like you, man, it was like, that was okay for that one, but yeah, we'll just call that one good and we won't do it again. But this is the first one that we're tied deep and,
So why did you partner?
Just to be honest with you, probably a little bit of confidence with getting financing for large storage facilities. I had started with the $5,000 houses, and so it was a confidence thing. And Randy kind of came in, did a lot more of the creative financing, had private lenders, that kind of stuff. So once again, going back to what you said, it kind of was that blend of, I had a lot of the operational side, a lot of the finding things, and Randy had that confidence with the financing side. So it kind of just lended well. And I'll be honest with you, it happened so fast. I mean, we bought 10 storage facilities in 18 months.
Okay. So we're going to have to go into that one just a hair. So, okay. So you're rocking and rolling on this single family stuff. You're paying stuff off, life's great. And then you start a partnership, right? And I don't know if you guys had a relationship prior to that or if it just kind of manifested itself out of this deal, but like what made you segue from single family into storage? And then how did you, apparently went straight gangbusters. Like, can you give us like the chapter in the book about how you went from that to now 10 storage facilities in a year and a half?
I guess I can say this. I don't know, but my, Storage Rebellion, I got involved with them, and seeing Mike say that he threw his cell phone in a lake. Man,
I'm with you right there. I don't know how to quantify that goal.
You're on mute, dude.
Mike, you muted yourself.
Damn it. I was talking with my hands. I didn't know how to quantify it, but that one right there might be it. I told my wife I want to go an entire day and make my cell phone not ring once. Yeah. Because right now it's not there. Yeah. But I think I might just get to the point where my goal is to throw it into a lake.
That's what Mike said. And he said he got call centers and all these different things. So I just got hooked up, and I was like, if this is the way out of having to deal with that, I'm all in. And so I jumped in, started looking for them, and just kind of, I had bought one before Randy and I partnered. And then, Randy and I were driving around. And back to the beginning, how did Randy and I meet? How did our partnership begin? He wholesaled two deals to me like 10 years ago. And we kind of just touched base maybe once, maybe twice a year, and, just got along. And then when he was like, hey, let's do this storage thing together, I thought, well, fine, let's just do it. And literally, it was crazy. We just went all in, and we just started buying and buying and buying. And the crazy thing is too, that a lot of storage guys are amazed by all of our storage facilities are within 45 minutes of each other.
That boggles my mind, and I love it because it cuts down so much wasted time.
How did you find
when you guys talk about Mike? It's talking about like Mike Wagner, not Mike Webb. So Mike Wagner is he runs a group called Storage Rebellion, which is kind of a mastermind group that you buy into, and guys help each other like learn and build. And I think Mike Webb and Tyler Thrush are also part of that now, kind of getting their feet wet on these storage unit deals. So when did you start in that group? And go ahead.
About 2 years ago. It was right when I bought my first one.
And worth its weight in gold, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, you can't the knowledge and just the being able to bounce things off, and just the little thing of the call center. I mean, I could have probably researched that and figured it out myself, but I didn't, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without it. For sure.
That's the biggest thing when we talk about, sorry guys, we got homeschooling going on. That's the biggest thing that I think people always look at the cost of a mastermind and like, oh, that's so expensive. But what you just said is like dead on, right? Like, I forget what level I'm in, like Storage Rebellion University or whatever it is. But there's no way at the end of the year you cannot tell me that any of those things are not worth it. And it's usually exponential growth. Like I remember going to Investor Fuel, for example. There was processes that I had not even started to figure out. I knew I probably should, and then somebody presented on it. And like, oh, this is what I do. I'm like, I'm just going to copy that right now, and boom. I mean, that one thing has paid for years and years of
cut your learning curve down. Significantly.
Big time. And then once you see it the first time, you're like, I don't need to figure anything out. I'm going to go find somebody who does what I need to do and ask them to help me out. And then in return, if somebody needs help from me, I'll be more than willing to help them too.
Yeah.
So I love strategy.
Go ahead, man.
I love strategy in real estate because there's so many different ways you can get into strategy. Like earlier when you're talking about bulldozing a house, like I've seen houses get bulldozed and they don't have to pay the impact fee now. So the impact fee around here is $40,000 or $30,000. So You just buy a house that needs to be bulldozed, and then it saves you $30,000 or $40,000, and it saves you the cost of running utilities, electric and water and sewer and all that stuff. So there's a lot of strategies. Like, do you see some of the same strategies in wholesale deals? Not wholesale deals, in multi-unit families, multi-unit storage, and the single family. Like, can you cross lines with some of your strategies?
Absolutely. I mean, every one I do value add. So I have never bought a retail property ever. I mean,
so what's value add? Can you go over that?
You buy something 40, 50% of what it could be. It's a fixer upper. So the storage facilities are fixer uppers, or if they're not even fixer uppers. Now I haven't done many in the storage realm this way, but with storage, you can do a lot of management. So I bought one that was about 50%. So if it
occupied,
50% rent rates. So if it was $200 for a 10 by 20 in this climate controlled facility, they were $95 or $100. So I was able to buy that one for a management overhaul. Probably 8 of the other storage facilities, we've either done, storage, we've done some crazy stuff. I mean, it's been, doing dirt work, bringing units in. We've actually tore storage facilities down, moved them an hour up the road. We've done conversions. So when I say value add, we will take either a building that's 200,000 and turn it into 1.5 million with $200,000-$300,000 worth of work to it. Or we'll tear a storage facility down in one town, move it to another town, rebuild it back up. We bought 2 from it's called TDOT, Tennessee Department of Transportation. They were doing a road expansion, so we took a small climate controlled and a 30 by 100 non-climate controlled for $1. It was 92 cents a square foot. Well, if you go do a metal package a year ago, it was getting up to like $20, $25, $26 a square foot just for the metal package. Well, I was getting like the climate controlled. We got heating and air. We got all the electrical, everything with it. So for 92 cents a square foot.
So you're buying it for 1/25 of the value, moving it, reallocating the entire building, rebuilding it, and then putting people in there for a fraction of the cost. So it's a guaranteed moneymaker.
Right. So that's what I call a value add. Is you're creating value that was not there, but we're just being creative with it.
And multi-units and multi-storage facilities, they can do that, because if you go up, say you have 100 units, right? So you go up $1 a unit, it's $100. You go up $100, it's $10,000. Like, it makes a big move on that line of where you're going to make a profit at. So if you go and fix up say you fix a property up that's run down, maybe it needs some work, and it's in a up and coming area, and you add value to the property. You do the paint, the carpets, new granite countertops, make the halls look nice. Once you up the value, then on the back end, the bank will appraise it higher because your cash coming in is making that property worth more money, right?
Absolutely.
And then you can borrow against it, which is Randy's thing.
You can borrow against it. Yep.
And then you can go on to the next deal and use the same thing. And it's the value add in my area is getting harder and harder to find. I think across the country, it's getting harder to find. So people are getting creative. Like, I was looking at Echo Domes, which is like this Epcot Center, big round dome thing. Like, I could make a glamping thing out of it the other day. I was talking to one of our ADU guy, Derek, about it, just to see what he thought about it. But you have to get creative in some of this stuff. And it sounds like Randy is a creative one in your partnership, and you're the hardworking, blood, sweat, and tears type of guy.
Yeah, I think that the creative side with that, Randy and I both have done. Right. I couldn't justify paying $26 a square foot for a new building when I could pay 92 cents.
Absolutely.
And, another thing that we just recently did is we had a little piece of property that our local municipality was giving us a hard time about building. They were moving it back 50 foot off the road, where our existing's only 20 foot off the road. And so we ended up, I found it on Facebook. A guy was selling some Boxwells, which are like storage containers, but they're specifically designed for storage. They're more acceptable than even like the containers. And
yeah, they look nice.
They do. 3 hours away from where we're at. So we went up, checked them out, and there's 36 of them. We bought all 36 of them, and we're actually in the process right now. I get 2 shipments a day. I had to find a guy that would bring 2 at a time. We're leaving them set up. We're bringing them in. We're setting them in, repainting them, matching our color scheme and everything else. We're going to be all in like $20 a square foot for these. If you just buy a new Boxwell, I think they're like $45 a square foot.
Yeah, I talked to the company, and it's basically like they kind of, I don't want to say mislead you. That's not what I mean. But like at first it sounds really appealing. Then like by the time you have the delivery, the setup and everything, you're like, well, shit, you're damn near at the price of just constructing them. And the only reason you wouldn't construct them is because your municipality giving you issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it sucks if you're going to be at $40, $50 a square foot and they are portable.
Right.
You really would like to have a foundation and stuff like that. So
do you really see a big difference though from our perspective? Yes, I agree. I'd rather them be actually poured and whatnot. Does the consumer really care?
I think that bank would. I think the end value, I don't know if that's what Dan was getting at, but I think when you go to appraise it or sell it, I think like anything, I would think they would discount that as far as if you took the total square footage and looking for value, I would guess they would. I'm not sure though, to be honest.
What's crazy is, so it's funny you said that. We actually just had this one appraised because we were trying to get money to be able to buy these and do the climate controlled there and everything else. Not one question about value with those Boxwells. I'm not saying that they wouldn't, because
I'm not on Facebook looking for Boxwells right now. Trust me.
I think Boxwells have a little different standard in the storage world though than like a Connex box. I think a Connex box has less value, where the Boxwells have a little bit more value. And I mean, when I went to the bank, I gave them the website, I gave them pictures and everything else. And what made me feel comfortable with it is one of my storage facilities I bought one storage facility that literally it was just 32. And when I say portable buildings, it's 2x4 stick with metal wrap around and metal on the roof with a garage door on it. Man, when we refinanced that one, the bank didn't say a word. I wonder
if the bank knows. Do you think the bank knows the difference between them, like one box?
Absolutely. Yeah, really? Because the appraiser noted it. Okay. And they knew. But the thing is going back to what you said, Aaron, multifamily storage, everything's based on, a cap rate. What income are you bringing in? What's crazy is I thought that those portables wouldn't rent well. And we had built 18,000 square foot of traditional metal storage. Those stupid portables rented before the traditional, and I had it priced at the exact same thing as the traditional. I have no idea why, but they actually rented first before the traditional metal.
Aren't you glad you bought all 35?
Dude, absolutely. Yeah.
I would love to find that, because I have a 2 like on the place we just bought, we have 2 acres, and I'm basically adding 180 foot by 50 foot like RV storage boat parking right now, because it's like super low barrier to getting it up and running and increasing cash flow. But like the ground is prepped, so I could basically switch to that Boxwell concept or Connex container concept. Yep. And then I have a whole nother area where I could do the exact same thing, but I'm doing it in phases. Yep. So it's like, man, like still blows my mind. People pay what they do to store crap, like I can't wrap my head around it.
Storage Wars should be, that's a fraudulent show, because I have never found anything worth I'm blown away. I really am blown away.
I used to buy those.
I did too. I was going to say, I used to go to the storage auctions before there was a show, and you'd be able to buy like an entire unit for, $5, $10, $15, $20. And now once the show came out, people were like, there's gold in there, $1,000. I'm like, bro.
No, there's 6 tires and 9 gallons of paint.
I was going to say, most of them are nasty. The best things I've ever found are like Pelican cases. I had a guy who had a ton of Pelican cases. Random stuff that you know the value for, or like an auto dialer. For me being in the mortgage industry for so long, I knew what that was. But other than that, it's a bunch of junk you just got to usually throw away.
Yeah, everyone has a mattress and a box spring in there. And for us, that costs $50 to get rid of. And it's like, man, that sucks.
So on the operator side of this, Dan, is hosting an auction worth it to you? Because I've heard both sides of the story.
So I started by actually doing it. I'd go on site and do it. And, it went fine. And as we started buying more, and I actually hired someone to come on and help in the operation side, help them with boots on the ground, things like that. And we just transitioned to the online auction. It's so much easier. And I don't know that you necessarily, I hear different things. You can get more the other way. I don't know that you really get more. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of like in residential. All I'm really caring about is get your garbage out of there and let me re-rent that thing. I was
just going to say, like, who cares? Like, you're not making the money there. Like, I told my guy that does the lawn care and plowing and whatnot, he has a dump trailer. And I was like, we'll work something out. You just get all of them. And I have to see if this is legal, by the way. $50. If you find diamonds in there, sucks to be me. You find 7 tires, your problem.
That's right. And that's the other
exclusivity
thing about being doing it yourself or doing it through an online auction. Back to what Mike was saying, it's a lot more legal. They kind of regulate how you set it up and what you do based on your state laws. And I feel a little safer auctioning people's stuff off.
Sure. What company do you use? Is it like a national thing or local?
Auctions.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You set it up yourself then.
Yeah. Yeah. You take 7 pictures, you download it, and then you put it to auction. You do all your stuff through their website. You can post on, like, it's on our websites, auctions.com, if you're interested in buying auctions. Everything that you need to do for legality purposes, it's kind of does a step-by-step through auction.com.
Yeah. That's kind of my holdup, because the place we bought, like, they have people that are like, oh, that guy hasn't paid in 6 months. We haven't heard from him. But once it's been like a year, we clean it out.
Yeah.
What? That's not going to work. You can't wait a year.
I'd go through the process. The thing is, you've got other things that you need to be dealing with that one unit. And that's the other cool thing compared to multifamily to storage. You have 1 or 2 vacancies or people not paying, it doesn't hurt as bad. You get 2 or 3 apartments that aren't paying and you're in the $3,000 range rather than the, 100
plus turnover
Yeah. So
you forget just the missed income.
Yeah. You can be a little more generous on your evictions and a lot of times if you can get a hold of people, I'll just be like, look, either come get your stuff or start right now paying, but you have to be on reoccurring payments. And we got one that we just bought we bought another facility about 3 weeks ago. One lady's like $900 behind on 2 units. And I told her, I said, look, you're clear. You get $900 free. I said, but as of today, you pay on the first of the month and you go on reoccurring payments.
So how are you finding these storage unit deals? Are you marketing to them? Are you getting wholesales?
That is one thing that I absolutely fail in. I do not do direct marketing. I do not do anything like that. One deal I found on Facebook. Go ahead.
It's really impressive considering you have 100 rentals right now and then a couple thousand, tens of thousands of storage units. So
one was off of Facebook. I was just scrolling through Facebook and it said warehouse available, could be a climate controlled storage. I looked at it and I was like, hey, this is pretty close. Let's go look at it. And we went and looked at it. And it's a 40,000 square foot conversion that we're doing. That's the farthest one away. And now that one was creative. The owner took back a second mortgage, let us do a first with the bank. So we were able to buy all the package and everything else for our actual conversion. But so Facebook, one I bought from a guy that I knew because everything's close. I know a lot of guys, that are investors and stuff. So I just approached him one day and said, hey, dude, would you ever consider selling your facility? And he's like, yeah, actually, I would. I own a moving company and I want to build a full climate controlled. And I was like, okay. Had another guy just randomly call me. He owns storage in our hometown. And he bought these two and he made a nice little chunk on me in about 3 or 4 months. So he just kind of flipped it to me. Wholesaler on one, a realtor brought me those portables that had 3 acres. And I went up and that one's 45 minutes from the house, drove up there and started looking at it. And I thought, man, we could add regular storage facilities, move these portables. So just kind of a little bit of, and a lot of these masterminds, you hear a lot of guys say networking. I'm local, so it's networking. Just kind of
network is your net worth.
What? That's
your
right.
Network is net worth. Yeah,
I agree.
How about your housing though? Like, how did you find your housing deals?
Pretty much the same way.
Yep.
Just talking to guys. Hey, do you know of anything that's for sale? The 8 duplexes. What was crazy is I actually found that on the MLS, or I shouldn't say the MLS, realtor.com. I sit at home. I'm a nerd, or I don't know if I was at home or at the fire hall. I'll go through realtor.com and just look at stuff and that's how I found values, what stuff really worth and things like that. And so these 10 duplexes popped up and I was like, hey, I know exactly where those are. And so I called the broker and I said, hey, I'd be interested in all 10. He goes, all right. He was really wanting to sell them individually. And I said, let me go to my bank tomorrow and see if I can get the money. And that's how I found that one. So, now as I've gotten, I've been in real estate since 97 was when I bought my first. I've got realtors that call me. I've got other investors. Hey, I want to get rid of this. Would you be interested in that? But, that's 25 years of doing it. But when I first started this is a good story. I found one through a realtor. And the house across the street was a 4-foot tall grass, windows broke out, everything else. Every day that I drove up to the house that I was working on, I got postcards from Walmart. And I wrote on there, I'd love to buy your house. I have cash. I didn't have cash. That was a complete lie. I can close in 10 days. Dude, I'd put it on the door. And I'm not lying. Every day that I went over there, I put that on there. I finished up that flip. I had bought another one and I was working on it and I got a phone call and this guy goes, look, I've got about 45 postcards from you that say the exact same thing. He said, let's talk. I went and bought it. And it was just straight up, just constantly wearing somebody out. I mean, probably 2 or 3 postcards would have gotten the point across, but I was just like, I'm here. I'm going to make sure that, he knows that I'm interested in buying.
He knows your intentions. That's for sure.
That's right. So, so there's, I've done bandit signs. I don't know that I've ever gotten anything off of it. Back in the day, you're going to really laugh about this. I used to do classified ads in the newspaper.
I remember those days. We used to actually sell my grandma's house that way.
Yep.
So the funny thing is we had a guy named Mike Flora on this podcast before. He's a friend of ours. And he put a bandit sign in somebody's in their yard, one of the neighbor's yards, and said, I want to buy your house. in their yard. So they ended up calling him. I think he bought it. That's a story that always sticks with me.
That's hilarious.
Well, that's pretty aggressive advertising.
Part of it, you just have to, and I tell people this all the time when they say they can't find deals. I'm like, you're not looking. Go out there, talk to people, pound the pavement, drive around, find the house that's got grass all up around it. Another storage person that I follow a little bit, she talks all the time about driving for dollars. Get out there and drive. Get you an ice cream and take your wife and go drive around. And just real estate became my life. I saw two guys, they're both my mentors now, but years ago, just basic and simple guys, multimillionaires. And I'm like, man, if they can do it, I can do it. Number one thing is just don't give up. Don't quit. If you fail, even like, I was talking about how I hate the short-term rental side of things. We tried it and we didn't like it. We didn't fail. We made some pretty good money when we sold, but you're going to fail. Part of life is failing. You just have to keep going, and you have to know that this system works, that real estate creates wealth. Yes. And you just have to keep doing it.
So the funny thing is, as you were transitioning into that short term, that was my next move, was to transition to the short term conversation. On the right hand side, the private chat says short term. So right now, short term is a very shiny object syndrome. And we were just talking about this on another podcast a couple of days ago, is the market's saturated, the rates are higher, the value of the houses have gone up. Can you still make money on these properties? And it depends on where you are and what you're buying. So why didn't you like short-term rentals? Like, why didn't it work for you?
So we bought in near Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and lots and lots of cabins. We bought a new construction, and I'm going to be honest with you. We were successful. We bought it in December, and by 1st of March, we were renting. And we pretty much rented every week. Didn't have an issue. I don't like, once again, being hands-on. I didn't like leaving it to a cleaning company and a maintenance person, number one. Number two, I didn't like in this particular market where, like, Florida, some areas like that, people rent a year in advance. They'll be sitting on the beach and be like, oh, I love this, and I'm going to go ahead and rent for next year. In Pigeon Forge, they rent about 3 weeks in advance. So we were never like booked way out. That creates heartburn for me.
You have to worry about what if.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee.
Back to that what if, me liking a little bit of security, on the long-term rentals, I know that I've got a year lease. I know that I've got a person in there, where it was, week to week. So that was the other thing. And then the final thing that I didn't like was the entry to get in was high, and there wasn't a lot of reward. I could take that. And I borrowed most of it. So, back to the debt side of it, I actually took a loan out on it. And, I could take that credit and go buy something else that created so much more cash flow. So what my wife and I decided to do was we actually sold it and used the profit on it. And I'm actually doing some lending, and making 10% on that money that we made on it.
Don't you wish you bought in Gatlinburg in like 2016?
Yes.
So for those of you guys listening, Gatlinburg virtually burned down in 2016. It was a massive, massive wildfire. It's kind of like what Tyler deals with out in California.
Every year.
Unheard of for our area. Well, for the East Coast, we don't have.
We were actually called up there when that happened, and you could drive. We were probably 30 miles out, and all you saw was flames. It was wildland fires is a whole different ball game.
Yeah, give me a 2-story brick row house over an entire mountain. Don't give me a big sheet.
It's like hiking, but the woods are on fire.
Yeah. I'm out on that.
It is fun though.
I heard.
I guess we have different definitions.
No, I love a structure fire. Believe me, I'll take structure and working in a city any day. But it is kind of fun to get out there.
I got a buddy of mine who's a smoke jumper, and he's talking about getting painted. I was like, what the fuck is getting painted? And it's when the airplane drops the chemicals over top of you to put the fires out. And he's like, you get painted. I'm like, that sounds fucking terrible.
All your gear's pink. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is in Tennessee, we have so many freaking mountains. So it's not fun doing wildland because you're climbing up the side of a mountain to get up there. Tyler, you can have the wildland fires, man. I'm out.
So like the opportunity there was in 2016, everybody's like, oh, it's burned down. Like they didn't think anything of it. And then fast forward was 7 years later. Like this is one of the premier rental locations on the East Coast to stay at. And I'm like, man, if I knew now, like now I'm looking for anywhere that burns down. I'm like, is that a rentable area? Can I buy there? Are they going to redevelop it? And it's just opportunity is there if you know.
Yeah, I mean, look at Detroit.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Their economy is a little underwater. But Mike, like we had this conversation before we started. Mike's going through. Some guy decided to wipe his ass on Mike's sheets and smoke a J next to the bed, and the house smells like smoke on his short-term rental. Like, Mike, is this a turnoff for you? Is this like, what do you think? Like, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Of course, that's a turnoff, but you know,
I mean, in the short-term rental world, man.
So you don't like the peanut butter streak on your towel?
Not the shitty sheets.
I mean, it's. I guess you think about it, right? And you said you did weekly rentals with your 20 unit, so I imagine you expect to see a little more wear and tear. Like I expect to go through silverware and stuff like that. But I guess what I didn't, and you know, I don't want to paint with a broad brush. This has been one person out of several check-ins, right? I guess I didn't expect some of that type of ridiculousness. However, like you saw in the Facebook group, the income is definitely better. But yes, it's a turnoff. And frankly, I'm looking, like we referenced, like I'm trying to get this phone not to ring. The short-term rental model is definitely more of a hospitality business, in my opinion, and less of a real estate business. So as I transition to some things that I want to get into, like he mentioned lending, to me, that's always been top of the food chain, because like if you're the money guy, man, you return calls when you want. You don't have to jump at everybody's beck and call because some dumbass, you know, floss their ass with your towel or lock themselves out of their short-term rental or whatever the case is. You know, there wasn't enough olive oil in the cabinet and they want to leave you a 2-star review. Like, I'm not interested in continuing to build on that model, but for right now, it's fine. It pays for that house. But full disclosure, like I'm currently working on getting it on a short, medium, long-term corporate housing program locally with some bigger employers, to where I think I'll make a little bit less money, but I think I'll still make plenty to cover the house and make money, but with hopefully a less of a headache factor. So that was a long-winded way to say I didn't expect all of that, but I expected some of it. But you get paid for the amount of work I think that it correlates with. Not that you can't automate a lot of that, but I only have one in my personal portfolio. The rest are in a partnership. And for those ones, it's a different clientele. Like we primarily rent to nurses with those. So I don't know. I think I'm more interested in the storage model, lending, probably bigger syndication model eventually, than building a bunch of short-term rental stuff.
And the funny thing is short-term rental too, I also think that a lot of people need to be careful. You better underwrite it to where you can still be successful if you have to long-term it.
Perfect.
And I think that's another thing that a lot of people are doing that is going to bite some people, is that
100%.
They're underwriting it for the short-term rental. And you know, what you're doing, Mike, I think you're fine. I mean, I think as long as you underwrote it that way, but you could always change that model pretty simply.
Yeah. And we've talked about this. Like a lot of people are using the data that's been from the last 2 years, when there was a lot of travel mandates where people couldn't travel like overseas or different countries or whatever the case was. So you started to see a lot more travel like locally. Right. Yeah. So you saw these numbers go up, and who knows, like with inflation and whatnot, like if those rates will stay. But I think a lot of people are sitting there saying like, well, it rents for this, and they're not allowing for any sort of market correction. or change in basically occupancy. And I could make it a normal rental right now and it would still cover itself. I mean, it wouldn't be like a phenomenal investment, but I'm getting interest at $3,250 a month to make it a furnished 3-bed, 2-bath corporate rental is what I'm calling it. So, I mean, that's plenty of cash flow based on what I owe on it.
Yeah. And I think everything that we've talked about, from single family, multifamily, storage, and now to short term, even partners, not partners. I mean, all this stuff, I mean, it's, Mike, you said it at the very beginning, it comes down to being who you are. I don't think that there's one right way. I think there's guys that are killing it in short term, guys that are partnering, all this stuff. I think you just have to figure that out and do what feels comfortable. And sometimes you have to do it. You have to do the short term to realize you don't like it, or you have to do the storage to realize that you love it. And I think we get so pigeon-toed in this mindset of, there's just one way to do it.
I got a question for Tyler about lending, because if you guys don't know this, Tyler is actually a lender. And
he's kind of a big deal.
He is a big deal. He's done thousands of mortgages. But like we haven't promoted Tyler as much as he should be, because he knows what he's talking about. So for DSCR loans, have you heard of anybody who will lend based upon Airbnb or short-term rental numbers? Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, my family's loud in the background, so we're just going to have to roll with it. I have it. So there's companies. So wholesale lenders, obviously, they're always evolving, right? They're seeing what's happening in the market with us, and then they're creating products that will fit that box. And so there are multiple companies that are doing DSCR that do allow Airbnb income. A lot of they're going to use, if you don't have a history, they'll use AirDNA, which I'm sure you guys know what AirDNA is. It's basically just a website that you can get a lot of data from. They'll base your average rents off of that. And then others will just use, if you have a year of Airbnb income, they will use your income to generate your DSCR ratio, and it'll work out. But both of those products, remember, and I was talking with somebody from Mike's department this week, they serve like an awesome need. But people just have to be realistic about these products. Anytime you go specialty on lending, just think it's going to be more expensive in terms of usually rate and fees. But you have to have a different mindset. You're not looking to get a conventional loan on a standard rental and have it sit there forever. You're looking at something different and saying, okay, this fulfills a need. So I'll even use them on my own properties, as long as it kind of fits that box and fits the goal of what I'm trying to go for. But the last couple of years, they weren't doing it. And I know like specifically Caliber is doing it. There's lenders out there that are starting to do it because, hey, not anybody's doing it. Loan volume's obviously way down since the last few months when rates have gone up. So they're looking, hey, what products can I get out there? And that's definitely one of them.
So Dan, what are you looking forward to getting into in the near future? Are you doing more residential, more commercial, more of what?
Right now I'm trying to stabilize, really. Get these 10 stabilized, and then I don't know, I might look a little more into the multifamily again. I like diversification. I don't want to just sell out all my residential and go straight storage. I know a lot of guys that have. I think it's, for me, I like being the diversified to where, even going back to short-term rental, I like exit strategies, that what if mindset again. Yep. Short-term, I think could get a little sketchy where, if you have duplexes and fourplexes and stuff like that, those are a little easier to sell. Truly, it's stabilization, looking probably maybe a small multifamily because it's so scalable.
I like it. I'm with you in the diversification. Like the average millionaire has 7 revenues of income. And then you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket if it's all the same asset class in case something does happen. Like in Ireland, in 2017, I think it was, Ireland passed a rent increase moratorium or a law where you cannot increase rent more than 2% a year. If inflation goes up 10%, you still can only increase 2%. So if that ever happened to somewhere like the U.S., like, your expected projected pro forma.
Well, there's rent control locally. I mean, you don't have to go clear to Ireland, but that's where exactly the diversification comes into play, because that might be, look what the CDC did with COVID. You know, where do they get the authority to determine rent moratoriums? You know?
Yeah. But that's kind of where I was going with the direction of it, was like, I wanted to show, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because if you have across, like, locally is one thing, but across the entire nation is an entire another. And it's something I can see, say, the Democrats doing something, not the Democrats, we'll just say politicians. The politicians doing right now is like trying to control more, because I'm more of more freedoms, less government. But there's a lot of people out there who want more government, less freedoms, because they think that rules and laws make a difference. But that's an entire other podcast on. Yeah.
And that's where the storage is sexy, because they don't have to be held to the same rules as like rent for a house. You know, It's not treated as personal property. It's not the same. So 100%. So without me going,
Mike, mute yourself.
I said, without me going down that rabbit hole, I guess we'll start moving it to the final questions.
Yeah. So Dan, moving forward, the last two questions I have for you. Is there anything we missed that you want to go over, first of all?
No, not that I know of. I mean, it's I'm excited about the lending side of things. You know, I'd love to talk to Tyler a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy with it. I mean, I'd just like to do some, just so that I don't have to deal with all the management. You know, after 25 years, you get tired. You get tired of the management. You get tired of the people and everything else. So if I could get to where I didn't have to have as many employees and stuff. So, you know, that's really beyond even what asset class am I looking at. I'm looking more towards, you know, trying to do some more lending.
If you could go back and give your younger self some advice. So I know you and I have been investing since before the 2008 crash. If you can go back before that, say your 20s, your 30s, what advice would you give yourself?
Buy way more than I ever bought. Get more people. Don't try to do it all myself. You know, there's that book, Who, Not How. You know, I wish I would have not tried to do so much myself, and just buy as much as I possibly could have.
My wife's sitting over on the couch over here. Did you hear that, honey? Yeah. Okay.
She's like, who's this Dan guy? Because I got to send him a
nasty gram. No. So, all right. So the last question I have for you is, and I think I know, what's your why? Like, what's your motivation? Like, what keeps you going and keeps investing in more and more stuff? What is it?
For me, I mean, at this point, I have 2 teenage boys and a 9-year-old daughter. And so I want to create a future for them. I mean, my wife and I are taken care of now. So now I just want to be able to teach them and help them and, you know, give them a little bit of a start that I didn't have. And so that's my why now, is just getting to the point to help people. I mean, and beyond just my family, I mean, I've got guys locally that I've been kind of talking to and helping and stuff. So just seeing other people be able to get that freedom. You know, I've got the freedom from work. I've got the freedom from finances. And I love freedom. And so I want to see other people get the freedom.
True wealth is freedom of time. That's what I've learned as I've gotten older. Is if you have more free time, you don't have to work for somebody else, you don't have to answer to somebody else. You have time to spend on the things that you want to do and with the people you love. That's actually true wealth. That's all I've got. Mike, Tyler, do you have anything you want to throw in there?
Dan, are you going to be at the next event Ian's throwing? You think?
I am.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to catch up. And now, man, I would love to. I mean, we could go and I would have loved to do a little deep dive on some of these, because it sounds like with your experience and just all the different asset classes you have been in or are currently in, man, we could have gone over even a lot more. So, but thank you for sharing an hour of your time.
Figure it out and we'll go a little deeper next time.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I think
we'll recycle our friends.
I'd like to try and start doing like a monthly deep dive on like one asset. So like, I think I'm going to do in September, the one on my short-term rental, because at that point it'll be a 1 year since I bought it. So I was just going to kind of break it down. Like, this is how I found it. This is how I funded it. This is what I did to it. Yep. And, try and connect some of the dots for the folks. And I feel like some of the stuff you talked about, it would have been awesome. So greatly appreciate your time, man.
Man, no problem. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Awesome.
All right, man.
All right. Take care, fellas.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you here soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.